Hi everyone, I'm Sanjana Arora and I will be your host for today's episode of ITL Voices. I'm super thrilled to welcome our speaker Deepshikha Dutt from Dentons, Toronto. In this episode, we will learn about her journey and discuss various questions which often arise in the minds of ITLs looking to establish their legal career in Canada. With that, I would like to hand it over to Deepshikha to tell us a little about herself and her journey in the legal profession.
Thank you, Sanjana, for having me. I am a partner at Dentons, Toronto, and my practice is primarily in the area of directors and officers and errors and omissions litigation. I do some insurance coverage work, class action work, and represent professionals and boards on various negligence misrepresentation matters in court, basically.
The work sounds really interesting, Deepshikha, and I can't wait to hear more. Would you like to tell us about what inspired your move to Canada after completing your LLB from India?
So I did my 5-year BA-LLB from India, and I wanted to do my master's. Essentially, that was the plan. I was really interested in intellectual property rights at that point in time. And so I looked up universities that had a good intellectual property program, and University of Western Ontario was one of those universities. And I applied for my master's there and got a scholarship option at Western as well. So I came to do my master's. The plan was never really to be a lawyer in Canada. But when I came here, my supervisor and, everybody else around me, I sort of got inspired to at least get called here. And when I got called here, what I didn't appreciate at that point in time was that you needed to do your articling in order to get called here. And in order to work here for 10 months, once I finished that, it seemed like the aberrant choice. I got a job offer from FMC back then, which is now Dentons. And here we are sort of like 10 years later, but essentially master's was initially the idea. And then, yes, I wanted to, work here, and then ended up as a partner at the firm.
Taking this a step further, while going through the licensing process, did you know which area of law you wanted to practice, or did you get into litigation and disputes later?
I always knew I wanted to do litigation, and I think it is probably because my dad was a lawyer and he was a litigator, and so I always saw him practice, and through osmosis, I think that was naturally what I was attracted to. I also loved, arguing, putting my position together, and I wanted to be in court on my feet. And so litigation was always what I wanted to do. I was never interested in reviewing contracts and whatever it is that corporate people do, though as important as that work is. But I always knew I wanted to do litigation, yes.
I also do have a little bit of background in litigation, and I can completely relate to what you are saying. This also makes a great segue for our next question, which is, what were the biggest challenges you faced when you started your legal journey in Canada? And to be more specific, did you think there are better opportunities for ITLs now as opposed to when you went through the process?
Yes, definitely. Just the very fact that there's a program like this, the very fact that people know what an internationally trained lawyer is, I think is a huge plus. I remember me having a first conversation with one of the partners at the firm at that point in time, 10 years ago, and him looking at me as if, what does a foreign trained lawyer even mean? How do you even go about becoming qualified here? People didn't even know that was an option. And I think the biggest hurdle, which I still think is the biggest hurdle, is ensuring that those doors of articling opportunities are open for internationally trained lawyers, just because the whole program is so managed by the Law Society that most big firms, they hire summer students who then come back as articling students, who then come back as associates. So it's hard to break into that cycle if you're not part of first year law school or second year law school. Firms have obviously, like Dentons, have now started to do recruitment for articling students specifically for this reason, so that you can get access to internationally trained lawyers, because it's a huge market from the firm's perspective and talent that they're not accessing. And also it creates opportunities for the internationally trained lawyers themselves. So I think definitely it is way, way better, but I still think there is an information gap. And programs like these help sort of fill that information gap, because arming people with information is half the battle. And I'll give you an example. I split my articles into 3. I did not do all of my articling at FMC back then. I did 3 months at FMC. I did 3 months at Deloitte, and I did 4 months with a sole practitioner. And that's how I completed my 10 months of articling. I'm pretty sure even today, people are not aware that you can split your articles and finish your articles, because it is much more easy for a firm like Dentons or even in-house to hire someone for 3 months than for the whole 10 months. There is way more flexibility in that process. And if you're able to prove yourself in that time, it obviously opens the doors of opportunity. But just information like that is just not out there. And you have to sort of speak to people who've gone through the process to understand that. So I think that's the biggest hurdle even today.
I think what you shared with us today, I'm sure that's new information for a lot of our viewers about splitting the articles. About our next question, I'm super excited to know your views on this. What do you think has been your biggest achievements in Canada as an ITL? And what does it take for an ITL to achieve this measure of success that you have as a lawyer in this country?
I think, the obvious answer is obviously becoming a partner at a firm that is internationally renowned. But to me, I think it is more that I feel I am part of the legal community. I don't feel like an outsider. And I think it has taken a while to sort of get there and be comfortable in my skin and, feel like I'm part of the big Bay Street law firm environment. And I think that's my biggest success, to be able to assimilate that I feel one of the people. And I think how you achieve that is by just saying yes. By saying yes to any opportunity you get, by taking that opportunity and giving it your all. One of my strengths is once I set my sights on something, I will give it my all. And I think that is only way to succeed in a very competitive environment, like not only for internationally trained lawyers, frankly, law and Bay Street is a very competitive environment for any lawyer that joins, whether they're Canadian trained, internationally trained, or otherwise. And it requires a lot of hard work and a lot of commitment to succeed. And the only way to succeed is to work hard and give it your all and say yes to every opportunity you get, whether you like it, you don't like it. It will teach you something, whether you succeed in it or whether you don't succeed in it, for sure.
This is a great takeaway, Deepshikha. And for people especially who are looking to start their legal careers in Canada, and personally, I will aim to apply this to my journey as well. We all know the work style has changed due to COVID, and it has brought in a lot of flexibility. We would like to know about how your work style has changed personally during the pandemic. And to take it a little forward, how can students get more involved in the legal industry or network better, even when things are remote?
So I think I was one of those people who never worked from home pre-COVID. Even when I had something to do on a weekend, or if I had to stay late in the office, I was someone who went into the office physically, because I thought my mind sort of worked in a way where I needed that separation. When I was in the office, I was focused on what I was doing. When I was home, I couldn't even think about what to do with my files. So the pandemic was really interesting because initially I was super, super skeptical. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to function. I need my paper, I need my printer, I need to like read things. This is never going to work. And now I'm completely on the other end of the spectrum where I'm like, there's no way I can go full time back to work. And I want the option of some form of an hybrid where, you work from home on some times and some things which are flexible and easy, but you have to go back because nothing can change the in-person communication, especially for young lawyers. I find it is imperative to be back in the office because when I was in my first few years of practice, there's so many things that I learned by virtue of watching others do them. Like it is impossible to learn those things if you're not in person in the office. And so law is not a career that I think can be run virtually, though for sure, I think there's so much flexibility to be had, whether it is attending trial schedule in court, which, we used to spend in my junior years, like you spend sometimes half a day to get an opportunity to get a date for like 10 minutes. Now it's so much easier to log on to Zoom and do that. And so there's definitely pros of the virtual world. The electronic filing has gotten so much better. The courts have gotten more efficient. So I think it is here to stay. But I'm also looking forward to going back and like, meeting people, just like going to somebody's office and bouncing an idea of someone. I think that nothing can replace that. But to answer your question about how can students take advantage of the virtual world, I think it is so much easier to schedule things with lawyers that you want to interact with when you're on Zoom, because taking out 15 minutes from your day to have a Zoom call is way more flexible than requiring an hour, even if you have to go for coffee, right? So I would say use those opportunities. It doesn't have to be, a 1 hour long session for you to speak to someone. Schedule 15 minutes for a quick chat to just check in. Log on to, there's so many advocate society events and OBA events that happen virtually, which you can attend, which earlier you needed like, $200 ticket in order to get into the event. So some of the barriers of availability of sponsoring those events have been taken away. And I think the students should use that opportunity to log on to those sessions. Even access to judges has become way more easier. In fact, Justice Morowitz did a session a few days back, which was open and anybody could attend that. And so, you wouldn't get an opportunity like that if you were a student pre sort of pandemic. And now you have that opportunity. So some of those barriers have been taken away. And I think students should use the opportunity to take advantage of that. But there's nothing that replaces in-person meeting. And I'm definitely looking forward to that as we get back into the office.
I think both has its pros and cons. And like you said, that in-person experience of just standing and talking to someone, nothing can beat that. But also with that, things have become much easier. Like you mentioned, that access to even judges is so much easier. I attended this session a few days ago, which was a panel of judges, and they were talking about the recent judgments. So definitely things have become much more easier. But I think the flexibility that has come with it is, like you said, the things are here to stay. So it's definitely easier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
As we head towards the end of our discussion, is there any specific advice you would like to give to our ITLs who are either beginning their journey in Canada or are new to the Canadian legal landscape?
I think I would say don't be afraid to take on the challenges. It is hard because you're also trying to get used to the country, you're trying to get used to the culture, you're trying to get used to the work, you're trying to learn and become a good lawyer at the same time. All of that, obviously, it's not easy, but I would say don't be afraid to take on the challenges because you are bringing something to the table. Don't forget that. Like you're bringing a different viewpoint, you're bringing a different perspective, you're bringing a different legal training and background to the table. So don't underestimate yourself and don't be afraid of the challenges. It is not impossible. It may require more work. It may require more effort and more time, and be patient with that. You're not going to achieve this overnight. And I think sometimes people get frustrated by not getting that level of success quickly. Be patient, don't be afraid, and work hard. Like it will come. And so just keep in mind those things and it'll all be fine.
Thank you so much, Deepshikha, for the great advice. And I'm sure all our viewers would have a great takeaway from this discussion. With that, we conclude our today's episode. And thank you so much, Deepshikha.